of the Articles of Confederation. In what ways is the United States Constitution different from legislative codes, and why are those differences important? What is the significance of using the words "we, the people" in the preamble? You may begin.
With the dismissal of the Articles of Confederation, several shifts in power occurred within the dynamic of the United States. The Articles of Confederation delegated all the power to the states and allowed the sovereign League of Friendship to exist. The Articles set up a weak central government that was quickly put in the shadows by Shays' Rebellion and other uprisings by the people. These events led to the drafting of the Constitution and the creation of a superior central government. The purpose of the federal Constitution was bound to its name. To constitute is defined as establishing laws and an institution. The federal government's purpose is to uphold the institution and the laws that were created by the Constitution.
With the creation of the Constitution, the nation moved from a state of sovereignty to a system that would give higher power above them, deriving originally from the people. The term sovereignty means that an independent state or entity possesses the power to control its own affairs without interference from other governments. The establishment of the Constitution created a system of dual sovereigns, including the federal government, the power which comes from the people, and the state government, the power which came from the states. This new system affected an essential departure from the Articles that would change America's perception of law. By apportioning power to the people, this created a democratic republic. Well, unlike the Articles of Confederation, the federal government, the states, and the people now had shared powers.
The Constitution is an outline of laws, precedents, and fundamental principles by which a state or other organization is to be governed. Legislative codes, or state statutes, are formal written enactments of legislative authority that govern a state, city, or country. Statutes are created in order to command or prohibit something within the state's borders. A state's laws are enforced only within its borders, and they cannot supersede the laws set forth in the Constitution or by federal law. The distinction between state and federal law is crucial, for a state may not usurp the supreme law set forth in the Constitution. Ideally, all these varying sets of laws will work in harmony, but conflicts may arise.
The dual sovereign structure and the distinction between the U.S. Constitution and legislative codes was put to test in 1819. In McCulloch v. Maryland, Maryland had tried to tax a federal bank in order to make money in times of financial decline. The bank refused to pay the tax, so the federal government sued. The Supreme Court held the state tax unconstitutional under the Supremacy Clause. Maryland lacked the power to tax the bank because, under Article 6, Clause 2, the Constitution was deemed the supreme law of the land. The court reasoned that the national sovereignty lay in the hands of the people, not in the hands of the states. In a more modern case, the Supreme Court ruled that immigration laws passed in the state of Arizona were unconstitutional because Arizona usurped the power to regulate immigration away from the federal government. In Arizona v. the United States, the court ruled immigration is an issue that the federal government manages, and that the Supremacy Clause justifies the federal government's rights to override state laws.
Introducing the Constitution with "we the people" emphasized the nation's focus on the public as a powerful source of authority. The importance of the words is evidenced by saying "we the people," not "we the states." They meant that the people make up the Union as a whole. In Federalist Number 39, James Madison discussed the importance of having the people as a legitimate source of power for the newly created central government. "We the people" signifies unity between the people, the state governments, and the national government, and signifies the backing of the Constitution by the American people. We are now ready for your questions.
Okay, thank you. So I can see you're putting your cards away. Great. Yeah.
So thanks. I guess I just want to start by asking, what goals or ambitions does the preamble establish for the United States?
The preamble gave the people like some sort of security, in the sense that they had more power than they thought they were going to have in government. Traditionally, under the British tyranny, they had no control and were basically kept out of any governmental decisions. And so their goal ultimately for the Articles of Confederation was to gain power and influence and to gain authority amongst their own lives and in their own society. So the preamble was sort of a stepping stone in letting the people know we the people, not we the states or we the delegates or we the representatives. It embodies the entire city and the entire country as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with my colleague. We the people created a social contract, one which John Locke talked about in his writings, where the people give up some of their sovereign power and in return they expect their government to provide for them and protect them.
These rights were put into writing after the Bill of Rights, and further voting rights laws were passed. So people could really influence their government.
Thanks. We're gonna go on to another question. I want to ask a question from something that you guys talked about in your 4 minutes. You talked about really that there's a shared power between the states and the federal. So can you give me some specific powers that states have versus specific powers that the federal government has?
The state has the power to impose laws amongst their own people, amongst their own borders. So they can have a law against, for example, marijuana, or have a law against age limit of drinking, or the age at which you can drive. So this has an example of states' powers in their own borders, so they cannot expand or supersede laws in other states, as that has the Constitution. That is the laws that the entire country as a whole has to abide by.
Along with that, state laws, like you were saying, it helps the states in their own, they have their own things going on, but if those laws that the states create happen to have conflicts with the Constitution or laws set by the federal government, then they could be considered as null, or not, as in they're not supposed to be followed.
I have a different question, changing the gears a little bit. So President Franklin Roosevelt once said that the United States Constitution was a layman's document, not a lawyer's contract. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree with this. FDR did Executive Order 9066, which at the time he thought would help them win the war. It put Japanese immigrants and Japanese citizens in internment camps, and this was constitutional because it's an executive order, which the Constitution gives power to. But during John Adams' presidency, when he passed the Alien Sedition Acts, this was constitutional since Congress passed it, but Kentucky and Virginia chose to ignore this law because they thought that it was unconstitutional, so they passed resolutions to fix it.
When you hear the phrase, the blessings of liberty, so how do you explain that phrase, the blessings of liberty?
I believe it has to go along with we the people. Liberty meaning freedom and justice for all, and a unity amongst the people to feel safe in their own country, within their own government, and the belief that their government will work for them. And so we the people is another example of liberty, and another example of government is not here to restrain you, it's here to provide things for you so your life is better and that you feel comfortable living in America.
Liberty is, in that sense, I believe, it means a gift to the people that are living in that country. It is a blessing or a gift that brings people together.
I just want a quick follow-up. Gift from where? How does that work, do you think?
Well, speaking back on John Locke, believed that it's a natural right, that you are born with that right to have liberty and freedom. You're born to control your own actions and have your own thoughts. And so when you say liberty, it's a gift. In other countries, it's not given to you. You're restricted and you are held back from achieving your freedom or achieving your natural rights. So in America, we have the idea of pride and freedom and liberty, and so it's a gift that we are allowed to have, and other states or other countries are held from that right and that gift.
I agree with my colleague. Once our founding fathers broke away from Britain, they were being oppressed. They were under a tyrannous government. They believed in the divine rights of kings in Great Britain. Once they left that, they had much more liberty. The reason they went to the war was because they didn't have rights. Why would you stay in a government which doesn't give you rights? So once we did that, it was sort of a gift because they've never had that before.
Okay. What's the relationship, if any, between we the people of the preamble and sovereignty?
When they say we the people, it's as a whole, so the whole of the people working together to work hard and move the community forward. And sovereignty is ruling, governing, and when the people are put together, they are governing the country as a whole.
Sovereignty applied to the states, as in the states were working as their own entity and working to push their own state ahead and trying to gain leverage against other states. And we the people is bringing them back to the focus of unity and the common good and basically uniting every state and not keeping them separate, creating a strong bond between every state.
With such a discrepancy of what the majority and the minority believe in, then what should take hold of we the people if the people can't agree?
Well, America is very diverse. Although during our founding fathers' time it was basically just white males and slaves. As we progress through time, we're very diverse. Legislation has passed where we the people included whites, blacks, Asians, Indians, Native Americans. And through that, people had different points of views because they came from different countries. They believed in different types of government. They believed in different traditional values.
Thank you.